A lot of people think that DeFi is dying, and I just think that the early version of DeFi is slowly dying.
All views expressed by the hosts and guests in this podcast are solely their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of their respective employers. Guests and hosts may maintain positions in the assets discussed in this podcast. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and nothing in the podcast is intended to be financial, legal, or even leverage advice.
Cool. In today's episode, it's been a while since we do like one of these. We have mostly been doing live, so like people would just like see our faces directly. But we have a very special guest. We have Anton from Flying Tulip. Before we start, I just wanted to quickly introduce who you are to the audience. So my first question is, what are you doing? What's your background in the space, and what are we here to talk about today?
I generally introduce myself as if I work in fintech, right? So I don't really like talking about myself all that much.
No, same here.
Fixed income fund. But if I'm in a native room, I'd say I've helped build, a bunch of DeFi products and ecosystem tools like Yearn, Keeper, Solidly, and Chainlist. And I suppose my biggest claim to fame is probably that I'm sort of Andre's right-hand man in the DeFi space. And I suppose a less flattering version of my claim to fame is that I sort of announced that Andre and I were leaving DeFi, and the market took it pretty badly. But that's a bit about me, a bit of my history, and I suppose the current project that I'm working on is called Flying Tulip. And we're building a set of on-chain financial primitives and products that help make a blockchain feel sort of a lot closer to a centralized exchange in terms of UX, while keeping the parts transparent and on-chain that need to be transparent and on-chain. So one of our main focuses at Flying Tulip is that we're trying to solve the problem of capital efficiency, I guess. So in today's DeFi landscape, capital is usually sort of trapped in one silo inside one protocol at a time. So if you supply to, say, a lending market, that capital generally can't be used to back a limit order or be used in derivatives. So if you want to move it somewhere else, if you want to use it to make the capital useful, you have to pull it out, wrap it, bridge it, do something with it. And generally you're going to be giving up the yield when you do that, right? So what we're trying to do at Flying Tulip is we have this idea to build the system as a connected account layer, right? Mm-hmm. So that same collateral can be used to back a lending position or a lending borrower. You can perform trades against it and take orders. And eventually, when we get there, you can do the derivatives, and it can back your insurance products. And all this needs to happen while staying within healthy limits and predefined sort of risk controls that we have set up. So our idea of capital efficiency is not, magically making you use the same money twice for free or anything like that. It's just we're trying to stop treating each product as a sort of isolated island, and we're trying to make the capital less idle, have fewer fragmented systems, I suppose, and through all of this, create a better user experience for those that are using the products.
Got it. So I want to take a step back a bit. I guess for the majority of users, for normies, when they looked at DeFi, your statement is correct. Mostly you're interacting with one financial primitive, either lending, like AMM, swaps, and so on. And there is a limited way for you to be able to increase your capital efficiency. I think the most common is really just using a receipt token for a collateral to do something else. That's the tale as old of time since DeFi 1.0. I guess for somebody who's not super in the weeds about DeFi, about new DeFi primitives, what is the simple explanation that enable Flying Tulip's form of capital efficiency? Like what is the magic when like people say, oh, like how are you able to do all of this within one ecosystem, whereas it has never really been able to be done in the past before?
Yeah. So I think the big difference is that in the past, DeFi was built with one goal in mind. You have a product, and they're a lending market, they're a money market, and that's all you can do there because that is how they were designed, right? So the way we're doing it is kind of the hard way. So we in order to create a ecosystem that can effectively work with each other, you really need to build it from scratch with that goal in mind.
Yep.
You can't just take pieces of different protocols and somehow stitch them together. And we've tried that a lot in the past. A lot of our work in the past in DeFi has been trying to prototype ideas to make a bigger ecosystem work effectively by stitching together big players in the space.
Yep.
So, and we've tried it and prototyped like hundreds of these sorts of products, but they've never really worked. It's never really been seamless. It's never been sort of effective. And I think the reason for that was our approach in the past has been to use the space and the tools that are already there, whereas now we're building those tools from the ground up with the goal to have them fully integrated. Because
Got it. Very quick follow on to that. Where are things currently with Flying Tulip? Like if this is the first time that I'm like discovering it, what can I expect, or like what can I use it for right now?
So we have two products like fully launched right now. The first product is our FTUSD and SFTUSD. It's a delta neutral stablecoin. So FTUSD is just a standard stablecoin. We use it for a couple of things within our ecosystem, or we have a lot of plans to use it for a couple of things in our ecosystem down the line. But its sort of biggest use case right now is in staking it and generating, let's call it relatively safe yield that is generally going to outperform a lot of your other traditional DeFi products. And the other product that we have fully launched right now is a lending market, which is, I suppose, the core backing system behind how our entire ecosystem is going to be put together. So like, yeah, the lending market is, I would say, the backbone of Flying Tulip. Everything is built off of the collateral that you put into there and how it can be used across the ecosystem.
Got it. How is currently like FTUSD like generating yield again? Like, is it like what kind of delta neutral strategies that you're allocating to?
Sure. So easiest to explain is with an example. So on say Ethereum, what we do is we accept USDC as your core currency that you deposit, and you get FTUSD. And when staked, we deploy that USDC into our own lending market. And what we do is we borrow Ethereum or wrapped ETH against it, and we swap that wrapped ETH into staked wrapped ETH, Lido ETH.
I see.
And then we redeposit that into the ecosystem so that we have that sort of never-ending looped collateral and debt position. And that way we can create a leveraged yield position that has extremely low risk of ever being liquidated.
Got it. So all of the strategies are on chain, just for some of the listeners.
Correct. Completely, the entirety of Flying Tulip is on chain. We don't touch anything off chain. We really believe that in order to create an on-chain financial solution, you need to have the transparency be like 100% clear. And the only way you can really achieve that is by being on-chain.
Makes sense. And also like it's interesting that you're allocating towards like I guess on-chain native yield sources instead of like a lot of the newer trends these days. But okay, that makes sense, and I do understand that the lending market plays a big part to that. Taking a step back a bit, and you're like, what inspired you to like work on this again? Given that you start our conversation saying that, hey, you were sort of like, I'm going to leave DeFi, and like people may have taken that in the wrong context, but I guess this is more of like a broad-based question. Like why do you decide to work on this, and what's your view on like the future of DeFi itself? Which parts that you like, you don't like? I just want to hear you like spitballing on this, basically.
Yeah, so I mean, lots of questions in that. So let's sort of tackle some of them. The reason I left the space or back in 2022 is mainly because of the regulatory sort of scrutiny around Yearn and Andre's involvement there back in that time, right? And like, I don't want to speak for Andre or claim that I have full on first-hand knowledge of everything that goes on, because I wasn't actively involved in that, and I didn't get any of the letters or anything, but I could see the toll that it took on him, right? It was tough. And that process had been going on for a long time, and we sort of got to the point where we just thought that every single thing that we were going to build would be seen through that same lens, and anything that we decided to build at that point going forward would just delay that same process that felt was never ending, right?
Right.
So like basically one day he just said, we kind of need to publicly declare that we're no longer in the space. Because like that was just a never ending process, right?
I get it. Makes sense.
And then why I'm back? Well, because Andre wanted to build like a really cool product, right? Flying Tulip is nothing like what we've tackled before. Like his brain just never stops working. So he might have stopped actively working in the space, right? But I guarantee you, his brain didn't stop thinking about how to build DeFi in a better way, right? Because we've tested and prototyped so many more products than what the world has seen, and some of them are just sort of half cooked, some of them just didn't really work properly. But what we have at Flying Tulip, it's interesting to me because I see how Flying Tulip has become one big unified thing, but I've seen the steps that got it there over the couple of years that I've worked with Andre, right? I've seen, and we've tried a lot of the various ideas that build up the entirety of Flying Tulip. So yeah, Flying Tulip is just more ambitious than any of the previous products, and that's in like at its base really interesting to me as a builder, as a technologist. Like you want to build challenging software that can really make a difference, right?
For sure.
Yeah. So
and
yeah,
and I think to your point, the environment has changed a lot, right? I mean, since whatever happened in the past couple of years is, I mean, whether all the crazy things in our space, but a lot of the legal clarity, I think, is one thing that we can all agree, sort of like net positive. So I guess it makes a lot of sense. I want to build upon what you said about working on an ambitious project. I mean, like, I think we have seen Flying Tulip out for a couple months now. I guess also for the less initiated or like the less informed, I know you mentioned the stablecoin and the lending, but like what's on the roadmap and sort of like what's next, or what can they expect in the next couple of quarters, let's say?
Yeah, so pretty soon we're going to be launching our TRS product and our leverage trading protocol. And
what's the first one? Sorry, the TR what?
TRS. So
TRS.
TRS is sort of like it stands for total return swaps, which is a traditional financial product, but we don't have direct TRS. We have sort of TRS adjacent products, I suppose, is the best way to call it, because it's very difficult to get the pure legal version. But for users using the protocol, you will have something very similar to it. But sort of the idea behind it is that you can open a short or a long position, and it's got a very effective way of using your collateral. So most people will not see it much different from having a long or a short. And then leverage trading, that's been played around many times in the past.
Yep.
And we're just doing that, and we're doing it all on chain, which I think is the cool part about what we're doing.
And then also the perp you mentioned, like what's your take on that ecosystem? I mean, it seems to be very, very competitive. I'm like curious how you approach it with your capital efficiency in mind, I guess.
Yeah, look, it is an extremely competitive place, right? And there's a lot of successful guys in the space around there, but yeah, the sort of upside that we have is that your capital, you don't only have to use your capital for perps in our ecosystem. You can do everything else with it, and that's the benefit that we have.
Got it. I guess would love to hear your North Star, or like, let's say if like everything works very smoothly and you can launch these concurrent products in the next year or so, like how do you see like a power user would be using Flying Tulip in the future? Like how would an entity or like a fund or like a person would utilize all the different product stacks that you have?
Yeah, so I mean, there's different ways that I view it. For a power user, for your DeFi native person, our goal is to have us be the one-stop shop for everything they need, right? And obviously in DeFi right now, you want to do lending, you go to Aave. You want to do, you go to something else for other things. You go to swap assets on Uniswap, and like tools like eBank exist because DeFi is so defragmented, right? It's such a mix of different protocols that we actually needed tools to try and bring that back into one singular view of what's happening with your finances. And
Got it.
if we look at the traditional financial world, you don't necessarily need that as a user. If you want to do investments, generally all your modern banking infrastructure exists and can provide lending and cards payments. They can do investments and stocks, and that's the way that we are viewing Flying Tulip. We want to work towards being that one-stop shop that a user can put their funds not into DeFi, but they can put it into Flying Tulip and then not even know about the fact that it's DeFi. That's what we're after. We want people who are out in the world looking to invest money and looking to get exposure to, at least for now, crypto, but later on maybe some other real world assets, to view us as just a financial tool to achieve whatever goals they might have.
Got it. One thing that came to mind is, I mean, seems like these days there are really only two metrics that most DeFi projects are looking at, either TVL or a volume of transactions. I'm curious, given that, I mean, just like given you have a full suite of different products, like what is, like if this can be like a call to action, like what is your current focus in terms of like KPI or like goals? Like, do you, I mean, like obviously I might be saying like obvious stuff such as, of course, you want more TVL for like FTUSD and so on. But like, how do you sort of like see the protocol grow? Like what metric is the most important for you right now?
The most important metric for me personally is safety and security, right?
Yep.
Like this space is obviously very much tainted because of the exploits and everything that happens in the space, and we've seen as DeFi has gone through its various phases that the protocols that are not necessarily the fastest to iterate, that are slow, but they are very conscious in the changes that they make because security is their number one priority. Those are the protocols that are winning at the moment. Those are the guys that are still at the top of the charts, that are doing really well. So for me personally, that's the number one, right?
For sure.
That will always be the number one priority at DeFi. It's the way that we manage capital and the safety and security around that. But then in terms of how we scale FD, we're we're scaling on a couple fronts, right? We're scaling horizontally and vertically. So currently we're only on 2 chains. We're on Ethereum and Sonic, but we're planning a launch to be on Binance Smart Chain soon. And so our goal is to be able to turn any blockchain into an exchange that rivals a centralized exchange, right?
Got it.
So we want to be able to deploy on whatever the new, interesting chain is that everyone's flocking to, because that's where capital is inevitably going to go. So yeah, we're scaling sort of in that sort of horizontal space to see if what chains are worth our while to deploy on and where our products will fit very nicely. And then we're also scaling vertically in terms of trying to increase the TVL on each and every chain that we're on, right? So we're trying to launch more products so that we have a more usable ecosystem, so that we can attract more capital, and as more capital gets attracted, the ecosystem gets more usable. So then you sort of hit that flywheel of sort of natural growth. And I think that's one of the big things that we're sort of focused on in Flying Tulip.
Got it.
DeFi has gone through this phase in its infancy. Let's call it its infancy, where DeFi money just flocked to the current token incentive protocol.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'd say that a lot of people just view DeFi as, where can I park my money so that I can get some tokens and I can dump them, right, and get maximum yield. What we're doing at Flying Tulip is we don't have an inflationary token model. We're not minting FT to distribute to people. All of our yield is all organic due to the ecosystem that we have built. Now, sure, we're still going to provide certain incentives with our revenue, but those are going to be small comparatively speaking to a lot of the competitors. Yep. Our yield is generally going to be organic ecosystem usage.
I wanted to ask about that too. I guess, I mean, like, I remember when you guys made the announcement for, I guess you could call it a fairly unique capital allocation process, like when it's sort of like a put system and so on. I think the majority of our audience probably have heard of that and understood why, in a sense, it was sort of like structured that way. But my question is more so like, with that being done, how do you sort of like see the capital currently being like utilized, and how does that flow through the entire tokenomics system? Because if I'm not mistaken, your OPEX is going to be from the T-bill, that's from the funds that have been raised, right? Basically, that's what people can, they can redeem and so on because of that unique system that you guys pioneered. But like, how is that currently affecting both the operations and the FT token itself, the tokenomics?
Yeah, so the raise wasn't really a raise, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because at its fundamental core, we don't get to use the money that was raised, right? And that's I guess why we called it a sort of a capital allocation, because people allocated capital to the protocol, and what we as Flying Tulip do is we put that capital into safe DeFi protocols that we deemed the best bang for our buck, while maintaining like the highest capital control security risk.
Yep.
And then we just spend the yield that is generated as a result of that. So when a normal protocol raises money, we've seen it thousands of times in the DeFi space, they just get to spend all of their 50 million that they raised on salaries and audits and grants and marketing, boosting the tokenomics. That's the usual model, the usual playbook. But at Flying Tulip, because we have this put model and the capital is in essence locked because anyone can redeem it at any time, we have to just take things slower, and we have to be really precise about how we build and how we expand and how we ship new products, because we don't necessarily have that sort of very massive upfront expansion capability. We have
Yep.
to be slower, but I also prefer it that way. We have a very new ecosystem, and it's not necessarily battle tested. So at Flying Tulip, we're not actually super focused on trying to get the highest TVL right now, because that also exponentially increases the risk that we have.
For sure.
We're more than happy to keep it still small for now, while we iterate and build out and make sure that everything around our capital controls is safe and secure.
Got it.
But yeah,
Got it.
but it undoubtedly changes the way that we build. We have to build slower. We have a smaller team. We don't pump a lot into marketing. And I think one of the biggest changes is that we just aren't going to print a bunch of tokens for people to dump,
Yeah, I think it's also part of the just the space like maturing. Like
Yeah.
I saw. I mean, you like rarely tweeted, but your last tweet from February was sort of like the revenue of the protocol itself, and so on. It feels like these day and age that's especially important for DeFi projects, right? Like it's not like in the past where they can get away with like vanity metrics and then you launch your token and then that's how the team sort of like have run away for 5 years. Like now, sort of like this more, I guess, like proper business building structure
Yeah.
needs to be there. So yeah, yeah, I would close this session with like I guess maybe like I want to pass it back to you first if you have any questions or announcement or like anything that you want to ask me. Yeah.
Look, I mean, I think I suppose as a closing, I'd say that a lot of people think that DeFi is dying, and I just think that the early version of DeFi is slowly dying, where
Mm-mm.
people could do crazy things, and it was the Wild West. And I think the space is maturing, and what we like to call it is on-chain finance. It's no longer DeFi, and I think that shift towards having the space be far more serious with better risk controls and better capital efficiency and clear regulation. That's where we want to see the space move towards. And I think a lot of the big protocols that have existed over the past couple of years that are still doing well have moved in that direction. So, what makes Flying Tulip sort of interesting to me, and what's great about Flying Tulip is that it's not just another isolated DeFi app, right?
Right.
It's an attempt to build a real connected on-chain financial system with settlement and lending and trading and capital risk and insurance all interconnected, that speaks the same language. And I think if we can execute this correctly, we are going to sort of pioneer a new phase of DeFi, which we will call on-chain finance.
I think that's a great takeaway from this. We always ask all of our guests one final question as like a fun game. What do you think is required to make it in crypto?
If you asked this to me 8 years ago, I'd say a bit of insanity, to be honest, because the space was a bit crazy and a
Yeah.
massive appetite for risk. But what I would say you need now is you really look. I've been asked by friends, by family, by people that know me, like should they get into crypto? Should they invest, or should they start building in the space? And I'd say I generally say no, because they have lives and they have jobs and they have things to do.
I can
It's a
relate.
space
Yeah.
that you really need to dedicate a massive amount of time to. And I think that's what you need to make it in crypto. You need to really live the space and be fully invested in it.
I love it.
Otherwise, I
Yeah.
think sadly it kind of swallows you up. And
Yeah.
yeah, so So yeah, that's my opinion. You need to really live it and be fully. It needs to be part of you, more so than just a space that you work in.
Got it. Cool. I think that's a really good way to end this. Thank you so much for your time, Anton. Is there
Good, I appreciate it. Thanks, Mark.
for all the listeners, we would have all of the links in the show notes at the bottom. You can check out Flying Tulip. You can check their FTUSD, their lending products, and so on. And we will see you next time.
Perfect. Cheers, man. Have a great day.
Cheers.